You know, that feeling, right? That sense of being sort of at a crossroads, maybe unsure which way to turn, or even how to take that first step.
Oh, absolutely. That feeling of being stuck. It's pretty common, I think.
Yeah, it really is. And, in those moments, we often look for something, anything, to help us get moving again with some confidence.
Mm-hmm. Some kind of assurance.
Exactly. So today, we're doing a deep dive into a message that's all about that moving forward when things feel a bit uncertain.
Okay.
Our source is a text called God Calls Us Forward with His Presence. It draws from a story in Genesis, chapter 31, verses 1 to 30.
Right, the story of Jacob and Laban.
That's the one. And there's this really key line in verse 3 where the Lord says to Jacob, "Go back to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you."
I will be with you. So powerful. So basically, we want to dig into what this ancient story might tell us, for navigating our own transitions today.
Yeah, how to find that assurance, that inner strength. Okay, so lesson 1, the prompt to move and this promise of presence.
Right. So in the text, the trigger for Jacob is noticing things have changed, right? Laban's attitude isn't the same.
Yeah, the vibe shifted, you could say.
Yeah.
And it's right then in that discomfort that he gets this direct instruction, go home.
But it wasn't just go. Crucially, it came with that promise we mentioned, I will be with you.
Exactly. And isn't that often how it feels? Sometimes that unease or, changing circumstances, they can almost be signals.
Like a nudge, yeah. Not necessarily being forced out, but maybe invited towards something new.
Invited. I like that. And the promise of presence, whether you see that as God or an inner knowing or just a deep sense of support, that's what gives the courage to actually move, isn't it?
I think so. It suggests you don't need all the answers first. The confidence comes from trusting you're not completely on your own in it.
So for you listening, if you're feeling that kind of shift, that internal nudge, the text suggests maybe pausing first, seeking some clarity, perhaps through reflection or prayer, before just jumping.
Yeah, it's about tuning in, trying to connect with that deeper guidance or intuition before acting. That trust, that focus on the promise or the inner support, that's often more important than clinging to what's familiar but maybe stagnant.
Right, shifting focus from the what ifs of the fear to the potential, knowing you have that backing. Okay, so that leads into the second idea. Trusting divine protection over just our own plans.
Mm-hmm. Because Jacob did make plans, right? He strategized his exit, which is, a very human thing to do when facing a big change.
It's really natural. You think things through.
Yeah.
But the story then emphasizes something else when Laban comes after him.
Exactly. It highlights that ultimately it wasn't just Jacob's clever planning that saw him through. There's a focus on, let's call it a broader sense of safeguarding or protection.
So the takeaway isn't don't plan. Planning is wise.
Yeah.
But maybe our ultimate security blanket isn't solely our own strategy.
Yeah, it seems to point towards trusting in something larger at play. Because let's face it, even our best plans can hit snags. Unexpected opposition or just, that wave of fear can pop up.
Oh, definitely. Fear is great at keeping us put, even when we know deep down we should move.
Right. So the practical advice seems to be plan thoughtfully, sure, but also really prioritize that inner connection, that seeking of guidance, and maybe asking for protection or strength.
And when the fear does hit, lean into that deeper trust instead of just panic.
Yeah. The text suggests finding peace in believing that, even with challenges, there's a bigger purpose unfolding. Obstacles don't have to completely derail things if you're grounded in that trust.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So wrapping this up, our deep dive into Genesis 31 gave us two main takeaways.
First, those nudges to move forward, they often come with this promise of presence, of support.
Right. And second, while our plans are useful, maybe our deepest security comes from trusting in that support, that protection, beyond just our own efforts.
Which kind of boils down to that core message we found. Step forward with faith, however you define that, trusting God, or the process is already there.
Yeah. Step forward with faith. God is already there. So here's something to think about, just a final thought for you. How might really recognizing and leaning into that sense of presence, that inner support, change how you look at things right now, especially if you're feeling stuck or unsure about what's next?
How does acknowledging that presence shift your perspective on the journey itself? Good question to ponder.